Hi guys, Jared here with Day Traders FX. I hope you guys are having a great week. Let's talk about some of the setups that we see happening that will hopefully play out through today and even potentially throughout the rest of this week. Quickly, just a little peek at the U.S. markets. You can see that there's been a lot more talk with some of the positive economic data that we've seen about QE. This round of QE coming to an end. Stock market's not loving it a ton. You can see Dow's down about 85, 86 points right now. S&P's down a little bit. Everything's kind of in the red today. With some of those rumors and a few other things going on. The dollar actually, interestingly, sold off a little bit. There was some profit taking in the works, and we're going to look at all of that as well. No major news today. We do have some Australian news coming out this afternoon, this evening, and then going into tomorrow, we finally start to see a little bit more U.S. news, some things that might get the U.S. markets moving, preliminary GDP numbers, unemployment claims, pending home sales. And remember, we're coming into the end of the month, so this is going to be that month-end fix that we typically see where markets will start to move crazy for no reason, kind of like what we saw last night. And that might be early for the end of month fix. But anyways, let's look at things here. The euro dollar, I have been talking about this over and over again, and I'm almost sounding like a broken record even to myself here. But I still think the euro dollar has one more low to make. One more low. Not even such a new low, but just one more test. You can see here on our daily chart, we just kind of keep bumping along this area, and I think we're just going to test that 127.50 one more time. I think we need to get a nice good double bottom before the pre-summer movement kind of ends and the summer markets begin. Typically, you can see that May was a high, so we made a high in May, and we've been coming off that since. And I wouldn't be surprised to see June be a low and come off that, starting into June. So. I'm just watching. I think that we still have a very good chance for the euro dollar to hit that 127.50, possibly this week, possibly the first part of next week. We'll just kind of keep an eye on that. Now, an interesting thing here is this right here is my 200 moving average. And you can see that the euro dollar had a tough time, getting below this, bouncing on it over and over again. Finally, we made this big break below, and then we've been below it for a couple of weeks, and now it's testing and bouncing along the bottom of this moving average now. And we rallied up like crazy last night, about 130 pips, 140 pips, right into that 200 moving average, and you can see it's coming off of it nicely there. Our important levels, going back to this 4-hour chart for a moment, our important levels are the high of last week. That's going to be a big one, number one, and that's 130. The high of last week is 130. We break above that, and technically it's 129.97 or so, but I'm just going to say 130. We break above that, we're going to have a little bit of trouble with the high of the previous week, which is 130.30, but I wouldn't say too much trouble. I think if we get above 130, then we're going to stay above 130 probably for a little while, and we could see the euro rally as high as 131.50, 132.00 before we really start to kind of chop around and channel. If I had to say what I think the euro dollar may do over the next, like the month of June, for example, I would say that it's going to stay, at or above 127.50 and at or below 132.50. We're going to kind of be in this little channel of, 450, 500 pips, probably for at least June and probably even July. That seems like a good area for that summer chop to happen. But once again, we're just watching, we're looking, we're seeing if we can get one more opportunity to buy off of 12700/127.50, and in the meantime there are opportunities to sell. I'm not in anything yet on this euro dollar, but there's an opportunity to sell against 130. If this stays below 130, it should move down fairly nicely. If it does get up above that 130, then I think it turns into a pretty nice buying opportunity. So at the moment, I'm kind of just waiting on the euro dollar. We may see some nice opportunities to buy the dip down here more closer to 12800, 127.50, even 12700. And in the meantime, we may want to look for opportunities to trade against 130. It's a little ways off, though. You can see that right now it's currently just about 70 pips off of that 130 area, and that's far enough that I don't know if the risk to reward is good enough on this one yet. So we'd want to get this a little bit closer, maybe up more around 129, 65, 75 area before we start trying to short the euro dollar. So that's just kind of my synopsis real quick on that one and what I'm looking for. Now the pound dollar, I'm broken record sounding on the euro dollar and the fact that I think that 12700 is going to get hit. Pound dollar, really all I was looking for is about 150, the 150 flat area, and you can see that we ran down nicely. We've hit 150, bounced off it, hit 150 again, and we bounced off it again. So nice little double bottom on that 150 down there, and that's kind of as low as I expected it to go, to be honest. So now from this area here, there's a couple of things that I'm looking at. First of all, on the short-term range, we're going to have some missed daily pivots in here we have to keep in mind. We have nice little reversal candles and some long wicks against the weekly pivot and the 200 moving average. And so you can see that it's kind of playing around here with this 23% fib level from this low to this high right here. And you can see that's about 140 pips or so. So we're just kind of playing around there. I actually like shorting the pound dollar against its own high and against the weekly high. So here's our weekly high right here. We're currently about 35, 36 pips off of that. And that weekly high, by the way, is around 151, 55, 56 area. So let's see if we can get this thing a little bit higher, maybe into 151.30. 30 areas, so we can tighten that stop up a little bit. And let's start aiming for some of these lower levels, namely 150.90, 150.75 area. So right down in here, I think will be a good short-term trade against the weekly high, and that's what I'll be looking for on the pound dollar. So once again, trading against this weekly high, I think we have a nice chance to get back down into about the 150.75 area. Because we will have a missed pivot down there and some pretty nice targets. Aussie dollar, same kind of situation on the Aussie dollar. We have some pretty long wicks in this area. Now retail traders, one thing to mention, retail traders have kind of flipped a little bit, and they're all starting to kind of turn short euro dollar and pound dollar. So that's, they're just kind of following the movement all over the place. And retail traders really remain hugely long Aussie dollar, which means that there's probably going to be some more stops run. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Aussie dollar make a bit of a break for it. Now, the setup on the Aussie dollar looks a little bit better if you look at like a 15-minute chart. And you can see a nice little trend line here. We start to break this thing and we start to get below some of this support here, and I think we could see, as much as of a double bottom or anything along those lines there. Currently, we are. Let's go back to the 1-hour chart. Currently, we sit just about 35 pips below the daily high, and about 60 or so pips below the weekly high. Our stops should at least be above the daily high, but most likely above the weekly high, and so I think we've got some possible opportunities to short against that. But I'm kind of going to watch for a trend line break and just kind of see where this thing goes. Lots of reversal candles for today once again, so we may end up with some. With a little bit of reversal off of today's highs here. So let's keep our eye on that. The rest of the pairs, Aussie Yen looks pretty interesting. We saw a nice little break of this descending trend line on the Aussie Yen as the week started. It ran all the way up and it ran all the way back down. And it's kind of double bottomed pretty nicely here. You can see that super clearly on this 4-hour chart. It's double bottomed just around 9,700. And it may be ready for a bit of a bounce and a bit of a move back up higher. So I'm going to be looking at some of those opportunities. Once again, let's keep an eye on this little range here, and it's not actually so little; it's pretty good size. This range is going to give us some pretty good opportunities, especially as we get back up above 97.50. If we get above 97.50, we should see some pullbacks. But either way, I think we've got a good chance to probably trade against this weekly low and against this swing point here. They're only about 35 and 40 pips, about 5 pips difference between the two lows there, and start trading up towards 97.85, 9800 area. I think we're going to get some pretty decent retracement on this Aussie Yen off of this double bottom. So I actually like entering, as soon as possible. If we get a little bit of pullback, great, but entering sooner than later, long Aussie Yen up into some of this weekly and daily pivot zone here and getting some of that movement. So I'm going to be watching for that. But that's kind of what I'm looking for the moment. I'll keep my eye on things and send details out on Twitter. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter at DayTradersFX, and I will see you guys all in the live trade room. Thanks, everyone.